Hey, hey, hey. Welcome back to the podcast. It's Lacy, and I'm solo today. So let's hop back into the warehouse of wealth. Winnie and I just spent 3 full days at Heart of the Horse in Medicine Hat. So if you have never taken in the Heart of the Horse colt starting competition, highly recommend it. It happens every August in Medicine Hat, Alberta. It is produced by Nikki Flendra, a very accomplished and amazing horsewoman and a dear friend of mine and Reed's. And so check out heartofthehorse.ca. Get your tickets for next year. Mark that on your calendar because it's an unbelievable weekend full of showcasing the horse. From the colt starting to ranch horse competitions, ranch scramble competition, an evening with horses. So a beautiful night show that is produced by Nikki. And this year, it was like blown out of the water. So here I am back home Monday afternoon to get an episode out to you because we're running on a deadline here. So let's talk about chapter 3 of building your warehouse of wealth. And I've underlined some important parts here that stood out to me of this chapter. But basically, what Nelson wants to talk about in this chapter is spending habits. The chapter's titled Spending Habits of Americans. I'll be honest with you. Yeah, I needed to read this chapter. It hits home for me. It's a great reminder of our spending habits. I didn't meet Nelson. I wish I had, but I love his analogies. So money has to flow. And he compares it similarly to the flow of water in the world. Water has to flow, and without the flow of water, we can't live. And he also states money has to flow. And money has to flow or what? Or the banking system doesn't work. And we are part of that flow. The groceries that we buy, the money that's in our wallet or our purse when we make a payment somewhere. If we purchase a physical product, the money has to flow from us to the person who's selling that product. But the bigger question becomes, where is our money flowing? And that's what chapter 3 gets into. But not only where is it flowing, how much control do we have over that flow? And if you've read Becoming Your Own Banker, or if you've read Farming Without the Bank, you know that we do focus in on control of our money, because over the years with the banking system that's been developed, we have lost control of our money. And so let's talk a little bit about the spending habits of Americans, or the spending habits of everyone. It doesn't have to be just Americans. But because here in Canada, we have lots of similarities to the USA, he did a good bit of study on spending habits of families, and through the years kept an eye on figures and the proportion of income allocated to each category. And those categories that he has spent time studying is autos, housing, living, and spending. And the payment, so the principal payment versus the interest. And he goes on to say that he built these scenarios around the all-American family because he didn't want people to think that you have to be rich to create a banking system that can handle all of your needs for finance. And when he talks about finance, he means we finance everything that we purchase. We either pay interest to someone else or we give up interest that we could have earned otherwise. So he's talking all of your needs for finance. He's not meaning all of your banking needs or your need to finance automobiles or houses. He's talking about every single purchase that you make in your life. I'm not going to get into the percentages that he has for each category, the auto, housing, living, and saving, but I just want to hit the high spots. And so regardless of how much income you have, whether how high or how low your income is, we all have relatively the same expenses. We buy vehicles, we pay for housing, we have living expenses, we try to save. Hopefully we're saving some. If we do have bank financing, we're making principal payments, but we're also making interest payments. The numbers are different for every family, but the money is constantly flowing through our lives. We work, we exchange our time and our expertise for income. And if we're talking like farming and ranching, think about how the money flows through the operation over a span of like 20 or 30 years even. It can be trucks, equipment, land. cattle, feed, inputs, repairs, operating expenses, large sums of money flow through our operations. And it's going to flow whether we implement infinite banking or we don't. The money is still going to flow. So we really need to go back to chapter 2, where he says it's all about the way you think. You finance everything you buy. This is one of Nelson's famous statements. And I just said that. You pay interest to someone else, or you give up interest you could have earned otherwise if you're paying in cash. On chapter 31 of Warehouse of Wealth here, when you go to the doctor's office to get some sort of shot, the criteria is not the rate at which the medicine is injected into you. It is the volume. And so too little, it won't do any good. Too much, and it can kill you. And so this is the same with financing things. It is the volume of interest that we might pay on that automobile loan or that mortgage for our house. It's the volume of interest over the entire period of that loan. And then he goes through page 31 to even 34. Those pages are all about the different categories and what he has spent his time studying. So I'm not going to get into that. If you want to get into that, reach out to us at wecareatrancherway.com and we will get you hooked up with purchasing a copy of this book. But he goes back to figure 1 on page 7 that's labeled how a participating whole life policy works. And he says it should be pretty obvious that the fellow in his diagrams, his need for financing during his lifetime is greater than his need for death benefit. And so what he means by that is over our lifetime, we're going to need several vehicles. Life situations might change where we need to move and we purchase different houses. On the farm, equipment, cattle, inputs, you name it. Our need for financing things in our lives is far greater than that death benefit needed at the end of our life. And he says, when a policy owner pays a premium for life insurance, isn't it obvious that the company has to put it to work in order to be able to pay the ultimate death benefit? Isn't it also obvious that the owner outranks all the possible places that the company must put the money to work? Then why not solve for the need for finance? I have this part underlined. Why not solve for the need for finance through this magnificent financial device called the participating whole life insurance policy? The reason that very few folks see this possibility is because of the way we think. I'm not saying I'm any different. We all have to be retraining the way we think. And if you pay pennies into your premium, you can get pennies out. Or into your policy, you can get pennies out. And so Nelson refers to this as a penny ante product. Whenever we pay pennies into our policy and we get pennies out, it puts it into a penny ante product. Change the way you think and put in large premiums. In due course, if you're putting in large premiums, you have access to a large pool of cash value that is accessible for major purchases in your life through policy loans. Please remember that it is all borrowed money. You finance everything you buy, whether you recognize the fact or not. Remember that when you make a loan at a bank or some other financial organization, you must pay it back. What happens if you don't make your car payment? They're going to come get it. They must send Dog the Bounty Hunter. I don't know, but they're going to come get it. When you buy life insurance from this type of company, you own the contract, not the company. Do you want to steal from your warehouse of wealth and destroy it? I hope not. If you are halfway smart, you should pay the policy loan back at a higher rate of interest than what the company charges. And that's right from page 35 in Nelson's Warehouse of Wealth, Building Your Warehouse of Wealth. So we've been taught to think small about life insurance. And Nelson, he's always been so direct with that statement there. Because of the way we think, we limit the possibilities that we have with our life insurance contracts. And so what we need to do is get rid of these preconceived notions that we have about life insurance. Step outside of that box and say, what if what I've been hearing about infinite banking or farming without the bank What if it actually could work for me? What if we had a large pool of capital that we can make our purchases with? What if going to the bank was now plan B because we were self-sufficient in our financing? Self-reliant is what I was looking for. If you're looking at life insurance the way it's always been looked at, then you're limiting yourself. If you want that large pool of capital, then we got to put in large premiums. You can't put a tiny amount of money in there and then be disappointed that you can't do with it what you want for some sort of large purchase. You don't have to be rich to do this. I feel like Nelson really tried hard to deliver that point because it's really important, because when we start talking about putting in larger premiums, then sometimes people can think, well, only the big farms can do that. Only the huge ranches can do that. It's all relative to your farm or your ranch. Your purchases are relative to the size, or they should be relative to the size of your operation. And so the premium that you pay in will also be relative to the size of your operation. And so you don't have to be rich to start building this banking system, because this is your banking system. It's not the neighbor's banking system that has 1,000 more head than you or farms 3,000 more acres from you. This is your banking system, and it's built on what you need. You also don't build it all at once. It's built incrementally. If you were my husband, you would say Rome wasn't built in a day. Same with the policy. Your pool of accessible capital that you make major financing purchases with is not built in a day. It is built incrementally and over time. The first time you take a policy out, that policy doesn't finance every vehicle and every piece of purchase or every piece of equipment or every major purchase all at the same time, or that you're ever going to make. It's the start of that system. I feel like in chapter 3, Nelson really is driving home that we need to change the way we think if we're going to be, one, open to infinite banking and owning these policies, and two, if we're going to be successful in implementing the concept and building this pool of accessible cash. He goes on to talk about, he considers his own previous spending habits. He spent 35 years in life insurance sales, and he was an educated forester before that. He was a pilot. I just highly recommend that you get your own copy of this book and read it, because he talks about, in all the business ventures he had, he made money under those conditions in the late 70s in the business ventures he had. And then he got caught up in the interest rate environment of the 80s. And he got caught owing a lot of money under those conditions. Through many months of this financial pain during that time, it finally dawned on me that I could make policy loans from 3 different life insurance companies at 5, 6, and 8%. And the only thing that limited how much I could borrow was the cash value in them. Although I had bought a lot of this type of insurance, it was nowhere near the amount I should have bought to solve this problem. I had been thinking the way most folks think. Now I saw clearly that I should increase my premium outlay dramatically to more than 6 times my previous amount. This would create significant cash values from which I would borrow and pay off the snakes and dragons at the bank. When I described this idea to my peers in the life insurance business at that time, they all said, "You have a good idea there, but you owe a lot of money. As soon as you pay off your loans, you should put your idea to work." Nope, that is the way the world thinks. And they have never been right about anything. And so that's on page 37 of Building Your Warehouse of Wealth. And so to drive home, this is going to be one of our shorter episodes, and that's great because I think this short chapter packs a whole lot of powerful information. And he goes on to share a verse. I'm going to share some Jesus with you. And so in Matthew chapter 7, verse 13 and 14, it says, "Enter through the narrow gate. For wide is the gate and broad is the road that leads to destruction, and many enter through it. But small is the gate and narrow the road that leads to life, and only a few find it." This verse is so fitting for infinite banking, for farming without the bank, for ranch your way. because the gate is narrow, because not everybody's doing it. You have to think differently, and you have to believe that there's a better way. And you got to enter the narrow gate of the infinite banking world and start something that will impact generations to come on that farm or that ranch or in your business by building a pool of capital where you can rely less on the bank, you can keep more money in your operation, and then that death benefit's going to create that generational wealth. And so, Matthew chapter 7, verse 13 and 14, plastered on your wall. And then he finishes off the chapter with this: find a way to get the warehouse of wealth started as soon as possible. It can't be done overnight. It must be done incrementally. The earlier one starts a policy, the longer it is in force, the more efficient it gets. The best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago. The next best time is today. And that's by someone anonymous. So the best time to start a policy was 20 years ago, or yesterday, or last year. But the next best time is today. So whether you have been here listening to us for all 119 episodes, or you're just getting started, maybe you saw us at Heart of the Horse and you're tuned into our podcast now, hey, we're glad you're here. We appreciate you. We want to help you. So where you get started is with the book, the small little Farming Without the Bank book. Narrow is the gate. So rancherway.com, that's where you can get your copy of Farming Without the Bank. The audio version and the paperback version is what you're going to get in that bundle. We would love to hear questions, comments, feedback. Send them over at wecare@rancherway.com and someone will get back to you. Our amazing assistant, Amanda, monitors that email and she lets us know so that we can respond to you. So I'm glad you're here. I hope to see you next year at Heart of the Horse. And until next time, enter the narrow gate and we'll see you on the other side. Bye, guys.
So glad you leaned in with us on the Win A podcast. We truly hope you're feeling more informed and empowered to take another step towards optimizing your financial life. Right now, make sure you hit subscribe so you can keep growing and learning with us. Until next time, we wish you prosperity in every area of your life.